I'm about to show you how to fix this Sony TV that will not power on. In order to begin my diagnostics, I first need to remove the back cover, then I'll be able to do some live voltage checks with my multimeter. Once we've identified the defective circuit boards, I'll then show you how to fix it on a component level. Alright, let's begin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick. I started Nick's TV Repair more than a decade ago, and since then we have fixed over 28,000 devices. Next, we'll need to lift these latches on both sides of the TV. And this one's giving me a little trouble. There we go. And the cover should now lift up. And I'm just wiggling the top. There we go. I've placed my multimeter in DC mode. I'm going to use my negative lead and place it on chassis ground. And using my positive lead, I'm going to place it on the incoming power from the wall, from the brick. And I'm expecting to see about 24 volts. I'm getting 23.9, which means that we are getting the expected voltage out of the power brick going into the TV. Now that we've ruled out the brick as the issue, we're going to want to make sure that the power goes from here all the way to our DPS board. Still going to use my chassis as my ground. I'm then going to do some measurements from the left side of the connector, not the right side, but the left side, and see what voltage I get. So the top wire on the farmost left, I get 1.3 volts. Then the second wire, I get my 24 volts. Third, I get nothing. And fourth, I get nothing. So the second wire from the top, on the top row, we want to make sure that we get our 24 volts. And if we do, it does confirm that this whole area is working as it should. So let's move over to the DPS board and main board. So again, still using my chassis as my ground, and making sure I am taking measurements from the wired side, not the exposed pin side, otherwise you might slip and cause a short circuit. On the top row, top pin, I have the white wire. That's giving me 3.4 volts. The second wire on the top row from the top is not showing anything. The third is 12 volts. Fourth, 12 volts. Fifth, 3.3 volts. And the last one on the top row, also showing 3.3 volts. So there is one more voltage measurement we want to do on the DPS board. We're going to want to be careful. It's going to be on the left side of these capacitors. I'm using the circuit board to steady my hand because I don't want to slip. And I'm going to place the lead on the left side of the capacitor, and I want to see that 24 volts. So if I get that 24 volts, that tells me that the DPS board is sending that voltage to the main board. Through process of elimination, we've ruled out the brick, the LED driver board, and the DPS board as being defective parts, since they are all providing voltages to our main board. So by default, it means our main board is most likely defective. So we're going to focus on the main board next, more specifically on this chip over here, just to the bottom left of the white heatsink. For this one, I'm really going to zoom in on some of these components, and we're also going to do measurements on those. So I'm going to put one lead on either side of these capacitors, and I'm going to get 3.3 volts. I'm going to do the same to this capacitor over here. I'm going to get 1 volt. And then lastly, I'm going to do the same to this capacitor over here. Be very careful, steady. And I get 1.8 volts. The reason I did all those voltage measurements on the capacitors around that chip, which is the eMMC chip, is because I wanted to make sure that it was getting power. If it wasn't getting power, then it was likely that our processor chip was defective, the one under the white heatsink. But because we are getting power to it, it does mean that most likely the eMMC chip itself is defective. So let's bring the circuit board to our workbench, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. For the removal process of this circuit board, we're going to start by removing these two shrouds. So we have two clips. I'm going to push them both downwards, and this one comes off. This one has two clips that we're going to push outwards for both and wiggle it off. We're going to leave this one on till the end. Next, we're going to tackle our clips and ribbons. I'm going to put just slight pressure on the top clip and wiggle out the cable. For this one, it's a little tricky. There are two black tabs on the edges of the connector. We're going to need to press both of them down at the same time as we gently wiggle out the ribbon. This one, we're going to flip upwards the black latch. So flip it up, and then that wiggles out. And finally, the two at the bottom. So for this one, we're going to want to pinch the sides and wiggle it out. And this one, we can just wiggle down. And finally, we can remove the screws. When you lift the board, be gentle. The back is going to be slightly stuck to the chassis of the TV, and that's because of this pad on the bottom. All right, now that the board is lifted, this just wiggles off. Just a quick warning, the component level repair of this circuit board is fairly advanced. If you don't have the tools or expertise for this repair, we do offer the flat rate services, which come with a 1-year warranty, and we'll have those available on our website, which I will link in the video description down below. All right, let's begin. eMMC, which stands for Embedded Multimedia Chip, is essentially like an SD card or a hard drive that is soldered directly onto the circuit board. It's pretty much the brains of the TV. And of course, as you can imagine, if the brains of the TV is damaged or not working properly, it could definitely cause a no power issue. Unfortunately, these eMMC chips are really hard to diagnose without first removing them off the circuit board. So let's do that next. The eMMC chip is attached to the main board via a ball grid array. So in order for us to remove it safely, we need to use a rework machine which will very precisely heat up the chip from the top and the circuit board from the bottom until we reach the solder's melting point without affecting surrounding components. This process takes about 7 minutes. And we've just reached the end of our profile, so we can now safely remove the chip from the board. Now that we have removed the eMMC chip off the board, we can place it in our easy JTAG programmer socket to check on its current life. Let's run a smart report. And actually, it's not detecting that the chip is currently bad. That can sometimes be the case and is usually an indication that the software has corrupted on the chip. With that said, we can also see that the counter is showing 58,691 writes have been done to the chip. If you check on one of our videos from 2 weeks ago, you will see that a similar eMMC had failed around 70,000 writes, which means this chip is very near its end of life, and while I could just rewrite it, I want my repairs to last and thus will be replacing the chip. Now let's program our replacement chip. We are using an identical new replacement chip and we'll need to program 3 ROM files to it. We have already loaded them in the buffer and now can start the writing process to all 3 ROMs. You will notice that it starts writing to ROM number 2 first, then 3, and finally the largest file is ROM 1, which it writes to last. This process can take up to 7 minutes, so let's finish prepping our board while we wait. We first need to clean off any old remaining solder or it will prevent our replacement chip from properly attaching to the board. The replacement chip comes with new solder already attached to it on the bottom side. To make sure all of the old solder is removed, we use Desolder Wick, which will absorb any remaining solder from the pads on the board. Finally, we will do a cleanup of any burnt flux residue with isopropyl alcohol and a Chemtech wipe. We will then apply a new layer of fresh flux to help ensure smooth solder flow during the attachment process, and finally, we can line up our newly programmed replacement chip. We will run our eMMC reattachment profile and let the machine solder the chip back onto the board. This whole process will take another 7 minutes. I've already screwed in the main board back into our TV, and I just want to show you the installation process, and that's because it's just a little different than the removal. And for the installation, we don't need to actually activate or engage the locking mechanism. We just need to gently slide in the ribbon until we hear that click sound. For this smaller one, we're still going to lift the latch up and slide in the ribbon. I want to make sure that the black line lines up perfectly with the latch. If it's crooked, we'll need to lift the latch and readjust the ribbon. Close it back up. That looks good to me. And the same goes for the lower clips. We are just going to slide them in. We don't need to activate or engage the locking mechanisms. Now, before we can just plug the TV back in and have it work, we actually have to use a flash drive with pairing software for the main board to pair back to our TV. And that's just because of how Sony does things. The software that we've installed is probably paired to a different model TV. So we are going to install this flash drive onto any of the USBs on the side of the main board. And then we're going to go ahead and plug it in. Now, that flash drive, we do have a video on how to make it, and I'll link that in the description down below so that you can figure out how to do that yourself if you need to. We also have them for sale if you're interested in purchasing one. Now, right now, my light is flashing, so it does confirm I'm getting power to it. And if I rotate the TV, and I want to be very careful not to lose power while I do this, it'll show that the TV is updating, so it's currently pairing the main board to the T-Con board and the screen. This can take up to a full hour, so we're going to reconvene once the pairing is completed. So the pairing finished, and I did connect my Fire Stick to the TV. We are able to now confirm the audio and video is working from the output HDMI. So that does confirm we have a successful repair. If you have a Sony mainboard that you would like to send in for us to fix, we do offer the flat rate services, which come with a 1-year warranty. Those are available on our website, which I will link in the video description. That'll be down below. Otherwise, if you found the video helpful or useful, leave us a like, subscribe for more content, and thank you for watching.